The sky darkened over the Temple of Jerusalem. The end times had arrived. The Babylonian kingdom came to conquer Jerusalem. It was the year 586. The holy city that God had chosen was with faith and prosperity under the reign of the descendants of David, now trembled under the conquest of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. This monarch, known for his boundless ambition and his formidable army, had extended his empire over the surrounding nations. Jerusalem, weakened by internal divisions and failed alliances, could not resist the attack of the Babylonian army. The war trumpets resounded in the Kidron Valley, while the catapults launched projectiles. The war had lasted for months, a period of scarcity and despair that weakened the physical and spiritual defenses of the inhabitants. King Zedekiah, the last ruler of Judah, had attempted to flee in the darkness but was captured on the plains of Jericho. Nebuchadnezzar, in an act of calculated cruelty, ordered Zedekiah's sons executed before his eyes, before blinding and chaining him to be taken to Babylon. The city, once captured, was sacked, its temples desecrated, its palaces reduced to smoldering rubble. Solomon's temple, the eternal symbol of divine presence among the chosen people, was burned. Its sacred treasures, including the golden vessels used in rituals, were looted and transported as spoils of war. This event was not merely a military conquest. It represented the collapse of a world. The Babylonian exile marked the end of Jewish independence and the beginning of what would scatter the people of Israel to foreign lands. Thousands were deported in chains, marching across arid deserts into the heart of the enemy empire. Families separated, homes destroyed, and faith tested in the crucible of adversity. Prophets like Jeremiah had warned of this divine judgment, attributed to idolatry and the people's disloyalty to the covenant with Yahweh. However, amidst this darkness, figures of unwavering resilience emerged, whose devotion would light the way for future generations. Among the captives was Daniel, a young Israelite nobleman of royal lineage, descended from the house of David. 16 years old, Daniel possessed surprising intelligence, a refined education in the Mosaic laws, and a physical beauty that distinguished him. Along with him, 3 companions were selected: Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, also from prominent families. These young men represented the best of Jewish youth, educated, pious, and loyal to their heritage. Nebuchadnezzar, astute in his assimilation strategy, ordered these elite captives to be integrated into the Babylonian court. His plan was to re-educate them in Chaldean culture, erasing their Jewish identity and turning them into officials loyal to the empire. Upon arriving in Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the young men were renamed to symbolize their submission. Daniel became Belteshazzar, a name invoking the Babylonian god Bel. Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah became Abednego. This change was not superficial. It sought to erode their connection to Yahweh, replacing it with the worship of pagan deities like Marduk and Nabu. Nevertheless, Daniel and his companions maintained an unwavering faith. Faced with the temptation of cultural assimilation, they subtly rejected the foods of the royal table, which included foods consecrated to idols, opting for a vegetarian diet that preserved their ritual purity, according to Jewish law. Daniel's faith was not passive. While other exiles succumbed to discouragement or religious syncretism, Daniel prayed daily toward Jerusalem, remembering the divine promises of restoration. His devotion was manifested in a moral integrity that distinguished him, honest in his dealings, wise in his counsel, and humble before God. This faithfulness did not go unnoticed. Even in captivity, Daniel rose in the court, demonstrating that divine sovereignty transcends human chains. His previous experiences, dream interpretations, confrontations with kings, and prophetic visions would reveal a greater divine plan, where earthly empires are ephemeral before God's eternal kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar, a visionary but tyrannical king, personally inspected the captives. At an audience, he questioned Daniel about his lineage. "You are of the seed of kings," said the monarch, his crown gleaming in the sunday. Daniel humbly replied, "I serve the God of my fathers, who gives wisdom." The king, impressed, assigned them to lesser positions, but their rise was inevitable. Life in Babylon was a constant contrast. Opulent banquets served with spiced wines and exotic meats, contrasted with Daniel's secret prayers toward Jerusalem. He faced temptations, women of the promises of power, but his integrity remained. His equally faithful companions formed a pact of mutual support. Hananiah, now Shadrach, excelled in administration, Mishael, Meshach, in science, Azariah, Abednego, in diplomacy. As the months passed, Daniel interpreted minor dreams for officials, gaining a reputation. However, tension grew. The king demanded absolute loyalty, including idol worship. The young men prepared for greater trials, knowing that their faith would be tested by fire. The night in Babylon was a veil of stars covering the golden ceilings of the royal palace, where King Nebuchadnezzar rested in his opulent chamber. The walls, adorned with reliefs of lions and scenes of conquest, seemed to come alive under the flickering light of the lamps. However, the monarch's sleep was not peaceful. In the depths of his mind, a colossal vision materialized, an imposing statue, standing in a vast desert under a stormy sky. Its head was pure gold, gleaming and majestic, symbolizing unparalleled grandeur. The chest and arms, forged in fine silver, denoted a noble but inferior solidity. The belly and thighs, of polished bronze, evoked an age of expansion and trade. The legs, of relentless iron, represented a destructive force, while the feet, a mixture of iron and clay, suggested inherent fragility. Suddenly, a stone, carved not by human hands but by an unimaginable force, rolled down from a nearby mountain and struck the statue's feet. The structure collapsed into fragments. The gold mingled with the silver, the bronze with the iron, and everything turned to fine dust that the wind dispersed like ash. The stone, however, grew until it became an eternal mountain that filled the entire earth, an indestructible kingdom that would endure forever. Nebuchadnezzar awoke abruptly, his heart pounding furiously, drenched in cold sweat. The vision had deeply disturbed him, a warning he could not ignore. He immediately summoned his advisors, magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans, experts in the mysteries of the cosmos and divine omens. The throne room filled with figures wrapped in embroidered robes. "I have had a dream that troubles me," the king proclaimed in a fearful voice, his voice heavy with dread. "But I will not reveal its contents to you. Describe it yourselves and give me its interpretation, or you will be torn to pieces and your houses turned into dunghills." The wise men stared at each other in terror, their faces paling beneath their dyed beards. "O king, live forever," replied the leader of the Chaldeans, trembling. "No monarch on earth has demanded such a thing of his servants. Only the gods, whose dwelling is not with mortals, they can reveal the secrets of the human heart." This response only increased Nebuchadnezzar's anger, and he ordered the immediate execution of all the kingdom's wise men, including the young exiles like Daniel and his companions, who had been incorporated into the circle of advisors. Arioch, the captain of the royal guard, a man of imposing stature and shining armor, marched with his soldiers to the quarters of the Jewish captives. Daniel, upon learning of the sentence, maintained his composure and requested an audience with Arioch. "Why such a severe order from the king?" he inquired calmly, his voice modulated by a wisdom that transcended his youth. Arioch explained the dilemma, and Daniel requested a short period of time to find a solution. Time granted, Daniel returned to his chamber, where he met with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Together, they prostrated themselves in prayer, imploring the God of Israel to reveal the mystery and save their lives. The night passed in fervent vigil. While the city slept, Daniel received a divine vision. The king's dream unfolded before him clearly, accompanied by its interpretation. At dawn, filled with gratitude, he blessed the Lord. "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who understand." Daniel appeared before Arioch, who led him into the throne room. Nebuchadnezzar, seated on his jewel-encrusted ivory throne, scrutinized him skeptically. "Belteshazzar," he said, using Daniel's Babylonian name, "can you reveal to me the dream and its meaning?" Daniel humbly responded, "The secret the king demands cannot be revealed by wise men, astrologers, magicians, or diviners. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the last days." He proceeded to describe the dream with detailed precision, the multi-part statue, the destroying stone, and the eternal mountain. The king, astonished, leaned forward, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then Daniel, he interpreted, "You, O king, are the head of gold, the most glorious empire. After you will arise another, inferior kingdom. represented by silver, the Medo-Persian Empire. Next will come a bronze one, which will rule over all the earth, that of Greece under Alexander. The fourth kingdom, strong as iron, will crush the others, but it will be divided, like the legs of iron and the feet of iron mixed with clay, symbolizing the Roman Empire, fragile in its union. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will raise up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, and it will consume all the others, enduring forever. This is the stone cut without human hands. Nebuchadnezzar, moved by the revealed truth, bowed down before Daniel, acknowledging, "Surely your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and the one who reveals mysteries." He ordered incense offerings in honor of Daniel and promoted him to governor of the entire province of Babylon, chief of all the wise men. At Daniel's request, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were appointed provincial administrators, consolidating their influence at court. This experience not only saved lives but affirmed divine sovereignty over human affairs. The years had flowed by in Babylon like an inexorable river, bringing with them changes to the throne and the spirit of the empire. Nebuchadnezzar, the legendary conqueror, had died, leaving behind a legacy of architectural grandeur and military dominance. His successor, Belshazzar, his maternal grandson and co-regent in the final days of the empire, ruled with a mixture of opulence and neglect. The city, once a beacon of innovation with its irrigated canals and soaring temples, was now sinking into a subtle decline, marked by excessive feasting and idolatrous worship that eclipsed the wisdom of yesteryear. Belshazzar, a middle-aged man with a henna-dyed beard and purple robes embroidered with gold, prioritized pleasure over prudence, ignoring the warnings of the wise men and the shadows of enemies looming on the borders. In the heart of the royal palace, a vast columned hall with vaulted ceilings painted with mythological scenes, a monumental banquet was being prepared. 1,000 nobles, dressed in robes of silk imported from the east and adorned with glittering jewels, gathered around tables laden with delicacies, roasted peacocks, spiced wines from the vineyards of Assyria, and exotic fruits brought by caravans. The air was permeated with aromas of cinnamon and myrrh, while harpists and flutists filled the space with hypnotic melodies. Belshazzar, seated on a lofty throne, laughed with his concubines and courtiers, oblivious to the siege that the Medo-Persian army, led by Cyrus the Great, maintained outside the city's impregnable walls. He relied on the supply reserves and the invincibility of Babylon, proclaiming, "Our walls defy the gods themselves, let us drink and rejoice." And, in an act of audacious desecration, Belshazzar ordered the sacred vessels looted from the Temple of Jerusalem decades earlier by his grandfather to be brought in. These gold and silver vessels, once used in rituals dedicated to Yahweh, were now filled with wine to toast the Babylonian idols, Bel, Marduk, and Nebo. The nobles, drunk with liquor and arrogance, raised their vessels in mockery, praising deities of stone and metal, while pouring libations on the intricately mosaic floor. Suddenly, the dinner was interrupted by a supernatural phenomenon. In front of the golden chandelier that illuminated the hall, a human hand disembodied, ethereal, and luminous emerged from nowhere, floating in the air like a phantom. With precise fingers, it wrote on the wall, "Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin." The hall fell into a deathly silence. Glasses fell from trembling hands, spilling wine like blood. Belshazzar, his face paling, felt his knees weaken. "What does this mean?" he exclaimed, his voice breaking with terror. The nobles murmured, terrified, as the hand disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving the words engraved like an unappealable verdict. Immediately, the king summoned his astrologers, Chaldeans, and diviners, promising riches and honors to whoever interpreted the message. "You shall be third in the kingdom, with a gold chain around your neck," he offered to the assembled wise men, their robes shaking before the wall. Yet one after another, they confessed their inability. "O king, the words are a divine riddle. We cannot decipher them." Belshazzar's frustration grew, his anger mixing with panic, until the queen mother, Nitocris, a woman of accumulated wisdom and regal presence, entered the hall. "Fear not, O king," she advised in a calm voice. "There is a man in your kingdom in whom dwells the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, Nebuchadnezzar, light was found in him, intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Call him Daniel, whom he named the king Belteshazzar." Daniel, now an old man with silver hair and eyes that reflected decades of faithfulness, was brought before the king. Dressed in a simple robe, he stood in stark contrast to the courtly splendor, his presence emanating an unwavering spiritual authority. Belshazzar, eager, offered him the same honors. "If you can read the writing and tell me its interpretation, you shall be clothed in purple, with a chain of gold around your neck, and you shall be third in the kingdom." Daniel, with unalterable dignity, rejected the rewards. "Your gifts keep with you, and give your rewards to another. However, I will tell the king the interpretation." Before proceeding, Daniel rebuked the monarch with firm words, reminding him of the lesson in humility that God had taught Nebuchadnezzar his transformation into a beast for 7 years until acknowledging divine sovereignty. "You, Belshazzar, his son, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this. On the contrary, you have risen up against the Lord of heaven. You have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your nobles, your wives and your concubines have drunk wine from them. You have praised gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, who neither see nor hear nor know, and you have not served the God in whose hand is your life, and whose are all your ways." Then Daniel interpreted the words with prophetic precision. "Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Parsin, your kingdom has been broken and given to the Medes and Persians." The hall was filled with an oppressive silence. Belshazzar, although he ordered Daniel to be dressed in purple and a gold chain, proclaiming him third in the kingdom, could not dispel the foreboding of impending doom. That same night, while the city still resounded with echoes of the banquet, the Babylonian Empire fell. Cyrus the Persian, a cunning strategist, had diverted the waters of the Euphrates, allowing his army to enter through the dry riverbed. The guards, intoxicated by the feast, offered no resistance. Belshazzar was eliminated in the chaos, and Babylon passed into the hands of the Medes and Persians, fulfilling the prophecy to the letter. Daniel, a silent witness, saw in this the hand of God orchestrating history, affirming that human kingdoms are ephemeral before divine judgment. After the resounding fall of the Babylonian Empire under conquest, during the reign of the Medo-Persian Empire, a new order was imposed on the lands of the Euphrates. Darius the Mede, an experienced ruler of 62 years, assumed control of the vast territory, organizing it into 120 satrapies to ensure efficient administration. This monarch, characterized by his political astuteness and his inclination toward structured bureaucracy, appointed 3 presidents to oversee the satraps, in order to minimize corruption and maximize loyalty to the throne. Prominent among these presidents was Daniel, whose reputation for integrity and wisdom had transcended the borders of the fallen kingdoms. Despite his advanced age, Daniel maintained an imposing presence. His serene gaze reflected decades of divine fidelity, and his advice was valued for its precision and insight. Darius's court, located in a palace converted from ancient Babylonian halls, was a hotbed of intrigue. Polished marble columns and Persian tapestries adorned the corridors, where officials of various ethnicities vied for influence. Daniel, elevated to a position of preeminent, he administered fairly, applying principles of justice that contrasted with the nepotistic practices of many. His excellence did not go unnoticed. Darius planned to place him at the head of the entire kingdom, recognizing his superior administrative ability. However, this rise aroused deep envy among the other presidents and satraps, a group of ambitious men who saw Daniel as an obstacle to their aspirations. These conspirators, led by figures such as Gubaru and Arsamis, Persian nobles of ancient lineage, met secretly in a secluded chamber of the palace, lit by bronze lamps. "This Jew outshines us," they murmured, their voices thick with resentment. "He does not worship our gods or submit to our customs. How can he rule over us?" They decided to set a trap, knowing that Daniel's weakness lay not in corruption, but in his unwavering devotion to Yahweh. They observed his habits. 3 times a day, Daniel knelt in his upper chamber, with windows open toward Jerusalem, praying fervently and giving thanks to his God, just as he had done since his youth in exile. Taking advantage of Darius's vanity, the conspirators approached him in the throne room, a vast space with mosaics depicting Persian victories. "O King Darius, live forever," they proclaimed in unison, prostrating themselves before him. "All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, you, satraps, captains, and judges, have agreed that the king should issue a royal edict that for 30 days, anyone who makes a petition to any god or man except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions." Darius, flattered by the apparent unanimity and the elevation of his status to divine, signed the decree without scruple, sealing it with his royal ring, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which did not allow any revocation. The edict was proclaimed throughout the city. Heralds in chariots announced the ban in the crowded squares, where Persian merchants and Babylonian exiles exchanged goods. Daniel, upon hearing this, did not alter his routine. He continued to pray as usual, his unshakable faith overcoming his fear of the consequences. His enemies, vigilant, watched him from the shadows and denounced him to the king. "Daniel, one of the captives of Judah, has respected your decree. He makes his petition to his God 3 times a day." Darius, distressed at the realization of the trap, spent the day looking for a legal loophole, but the irrevocability of the edict bound him. At dusk, with the sun dyeing the horizon reddish, he ordered Daniel's arrest. Before the pit, a deep pit hewn out of the rock, guarded by guards and inhabited by ferocious lions brought from the Persian mountains, the king addressed Daniel with a trembling voice. "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." Daniel, calm, replied, "O king, live forever. I have committed no crime against you. My loyalty is unwavering, and my God is sovereign." The guards lowered him into the pit, sealing the entrance with a stone and the royal seal to prevent any intervention. That night, Darius fasted in his chamber, unable to sleep, tormented by remorse. He paced the torchlit corridors, reflecting on Daniel's integrity and questioning his own decree. At dawn, he rushed to the pit, his retinue following him with flickering torches. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to deliver you from the lions?" he cried in a broken voice. From the depths, Daniel's voice rang out clear and firm. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel who shut the lions' mouths, because I was found innocent before him. And yet before you, O king, I have done no wrong." The king, overjoyed, ordered Daniel brought up. Miraculously unharmed without a scratch, his robe intact, Daniel emerged before the astonished crowd. Immediately Darius had the conspirators arrested, along with their families, and threw them into the pit. Before they touched the bottom, the lions devoured them, a swift judgment that underscored divine justice. Deeply shocked, Darius issued a new edict, proclaimed in all the languages of the empire. "Throughout all the dominion of my kingdom, tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, and his dominion will endure to the end. He saves and delivers, and performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." In the twilight years of his life, Daniel, now a revered old man whose wisdom had survived multiple reigns, found himself immersed in a whirlwind of divine revelations that transcended time. Under Darius the Mede and later Cyrus the Persian, the empire was stabilizing in an era of relative administrative peace, but Daniel's spirit was troubled by visions that unveiled the mysteries of the future. The palace at Susa, with its gardens irrigated by crystalline canals and halls adorned with friezes of winged lions, served as a backdrop for these supernatural experiences. Daniel, wearing his white linen robe and an expression of deep contemplation, devoted his days to prayer and dream interpretation, was aware that his role as a prophet positioned him on the threshold between the human and the divine. The first of these major visions occurred during a season of fasting and penance. Daniel, afflicted by fate of his exiled people and the prophecies of restoration promised by Jeremiah, 70 years of captivity were drawing to a close. He prostrated himself on the banks of the Tigris River. The landscape was serene, turquoise waters reflecting the blue sky, palm trees whispering in the wind, but his soul was in turmoil. After 21 days of abstinence from food and wine, refusing even to anoint himself with oil, a heavenly figure appeared before him. It was a man clothed in linen, with a girdle of Uphaz gold, his body like beryl, his face like lightning, his eyes like fiery torches, his arms and feet like burnished bronze, and his voice like the roar of a multitude. Daniel's companions, terrified by the presence, fled and hid, leaving the prophet alone and weakened, trembling on his knees. The angel, identifying himself as Gabriel, the same one who had visited earlier prophets, touched Daniel to strengthen him. "O beloved man, do not fear. Peace be with you. Be strong and take heart," he said in a resounding voice. Gabriel revealed that he had been sent in answer to Daniel's prayers from day one, but had been detained for 21 days by the prince of the kingdom of Persia, an evil spiritual entity, a demonic prince who ruled the dark forces behind the Persian throne. Only the intervention of Michael, Israel's protective archangel, allowed Gabriel to proceed. This heavenly battle underscored the spiritual dimension of earthly conflicts, where unseen powers influence the affairs of nations. Gabriel then proceeded to unveil detailed prophecies about the future of empires. He foretold the rise of Persian kings, including Cyrus and his successors, followed by a powerful Greek kingdom under a warrior king, Alexander the Great, who would conquer vast territories but fragment into 4 divisions after his untimely death. From one of these horns would emerge a cunning and blasphemous king, Antiochus Epiphanes, who would desecrate the temple in Jerusalem, suspending sacrifices and erecting an abomination of desolation, a harbinger of tribulations for the Jewish people. However, Gabriel assured God's ultimate victory, with an unprecedented time of trouble culminating in the deliverance and resurrection of the righteous. Daniel, overwhelmed by the intensity, fell into a deep trance, but the angel restored him, sealing parts of the vision for future times. Not long after, in the first year of Belshazzar before the Babylonian fall, Daniel experienced another apocalyptic vision as he lay in his bed. The 4 winds of heaven stirred the great sea, from which emerged 4 colossal beasts, each representing a successive empire. The first, like a lion with eagle wings, symbolized Babylon, majestic but eventually stripped of its aerial power. The second, a bear raised on its side with 3 ribs in its mouth, embodied the Medo-Persian Empire, devouring 3 previous kingdoms, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. The third, a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, represented Greece under Alexander, swift in conquest, and divided into 4 Hellenistic kingdoms. The fourth beast, terrible and terrifying, with iron teeth and 10 horns, evoked the Roman Empire, a ruthless destroyer, trampling remnants of previous empires. From between its horns emerged a small, growing beast, tearing out 3 horns and possessing human eyes and a mouth that uttered blasphemous greatness, a symbol of a future anti-Christian power. This beast waged war against the saints, temporarily prevailing until the Ancient of Days God himself sat upon a throne of fire, with wheels like flames and a river of fire flowing before him. Tens of thousands served him in a heavenly judgment, where the books were opened and the beast was destroyed, its body consigned to the fire. In the midst of this judicial scene, Daniel saw one like a son of man, a messianic figure coming with the clouds of heaven, approaching the Ancient of Days. He was given dominion, glory, and an eternal, unshakable kingdom where all peoples, nations, and languages would serve him. Gabriel, interpreting the vision, confirmed that the beasts were earthly kingdoms, but the kingdom of the saints of the Most High would endure forever. Daniel, disturbed by the implications, kept the matter to his heart, reflecting on the divine sovereignty that orchestrates the rise and fall of nations. Other visions followed. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, Daniel received revelations about an end time, with enigmatic numerical details: 1,290 days, 1,335 days, pointing to periods of tribulation and blessing. Michael reappeared as the great prince who defends Israel in times of trouble, promising resurrection. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. These prophecies, sealed until the time of the end, emphasize the perseverance of the wise and purified. Daniel's experiences profoundly reveal divine sovereignty over human empires, demonstrating that earthly kingdoms, however imposing they may seem, are ephemeral in the face of God's eternal plan. In the interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue, Daniel delineated the succession of world powers: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, culminating in an unshakable kingdom established by the Creator. The writing on the wall during Belshazzar's banquet announced Babylon's immediate collapse, fulfilled that same night by the Persian invasion, an irrefutable testimony that God weighs and judges the nations. The miracle in the lion's den under Darius illustrated divine protection over the faithful, transforming an irrevocable decree into a universal proclamation of Yahweh's power. His apocalyptic visions, received in moments of intense prayer, expanded this cosmic perspective. Spiritual battles between angels like Gabriel and Michael against demonic princes highlighted the invisible dimension of geopolitical conflicts. The four beasts and the Son of Man prophesied not only historical events, such as Alexander's conquests and the Seleucid persecutions, but also a final judgment where evil is eradicated and the eternal kingdom prevails. These revelations, sealed for future generations, underscore that history is not random chaos, but a tapestry orchestrated by the divine hand, where individual faithfulness contributes to the collective triumph of justice. Daniel embodied spiritual resilience, a prophet in a foreign land who maintained his Jewish identity, influencing kings without compromising his principles. His legacy inspires us to recognize that, in times of oppression or uncertainty, dependence on God grants wisdom, protection, and purpose. And tell me, have you ever witnessed a divine sign from the Creator? I await your response in the comments. For more inspiring videos like this, I invite you to subscribe to the channel by activating the bell to share more reflections, and give it a like if this story has enriched your perspective. May the Creator bless you eternally.